Welcome to the Gen AI podcast, where the future meets fun and tech talk trends. Get ready to dive into the world of artificial intelligence like never before. Your hosts, Dale, Alan, Greg, and Val, are about to take you on a wild ride through the AI universe. So, buckle up, tune in, and let the AI adventure begin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Gen AI podcast. We're almost at 10. 10 is the magic number, apparently, for new podcasts, Al. And we're doing it with or without the full complement. Well, without, actually. We've never had the full complement. We've never had Val on the podcast, so we'll continue to give him flack for not being on the show. But for those of you discovering us for the first time, just to remind you that everything we're sharing is hopefully to give you perspective. It is our personal opinions and views, and hopefully we can also be devil's advocates and ask difficult questions and debate with each other. So the key here is because, for the most part, there's a lot happening and a lot of changes in the industry when it comes to AI, is that it continuously evolves. And so our views, our opinions will evolve with that. And hopefully we take you along the journey and give you some perspective. With that, we usually go to our friend ChatGPT or Bard or one of the large language models rather than just calling it AI, because there's a bit of misconception there, as Al will remind us, that there's more than just a large language model to AI. But we usually go to that for a topic. We're not going to do that this time. We're going to there's a few things that's been happening in the news the past couple of weeks since our last episode. So we're going to look at some of these topics, Al. Which one do you want to pick up of the hat first?
Well, the first one is the disappearance of Val. So if you have seen Val, if you have spotted him, we'll put an email just here. It's haveyouseenval@genaipodcast.com. Please let us know. Send us pictures of Val in the wild. If you've seen him, we just want to know he's okay.
Is there a prize? Is there a reward?
Well, seeing Val is already the prize, apparently. So,
okay, yeah. let's see the response we get on that. And we do miss you as well, Greg. So yeah.
Yeah. Greg has skipped 2 in a row now. What's going on?
Yeah. Exactly.
Maybe we should start a new email address for him. But we should start like a little. We'll make a video of like, where have you seen Val in all different places? We can publish it, like Val spotting. Could be a new thing. Start a new meme.
I love
news.
it. I love it.
Wow, there's been so much news in the last 2 weeks. So I have a personal favorite, and it's not going to be a surprise. So in the news, I think it was last week already, but the SEC has fined 2 investment advisors for effectively claiming that there was AI in their investment strategies and there wasn't. And they've now basically said that they're going to start any listed company or any company that the SEC has jurisdiction over, they'll start looking into AI washing a lot more deeply. And I'm here for that. I'm here for that because it helps. It helps, first of all, keep things honest, right? And so, the same as greenwashing, AI washing is just basically lying to your customers. But also it helps with, paradoxically, the fact that everybody is so excited about AI and everybody's claiming that they have AI in their products is actually making things worse. So in terms of adoption, it creates...
Yeah, sorry, I was going to jump in there quickly, Al, and just pause at that moment on people making claims that they have AI in their products. And I know we've gone over in previous episodes on what AI is and isn't, and it's really difficult to define it succinctly, I think, for, if someone new to artificial intelligence in terms of what we're talking about is trying to pick it out. It's sometimes difficult for those. Are we at a better place now, episode 8 in, where we do have a clearer definition? Or how do you make the distinction between whether a product has AI in it or not? Or what's the conception How is it conceived that has got AI in it or not?
I think the consensus is whether you can justifiably claim, and this is I'm thinking about it more about what would stand up in court when you are claiming that you were doing an honest advertisement to investors, for example, right? Because we're talking about the SEC. If you can reasonably claim that you have some algorithm in your product or in your investment strategy or whatever it is that you're selling that has been described as AI in the past, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I would say extends to all of machine learning, right? If you're doing something with support vector machines, which are mostly old stuff, but you could probably still get away with it, right? It's not what we would think of as generally just proper AI. I mean, proper AI is a horrible word, but like modern AI in the 2024 sense, but you could claim that and you could get away with it. And I think that's okay, right? I think there's there is a very fine line, right? So, and I think about this a lot as well as an investor. How would you feel? Say that you bought, I don't know, Palantir shares, right? I'm a big fan of Palantir as a company and their stock. There are some have some practices that are questionable, but as an investment, it's a great investment, right? And Palantir jumped on the AI wave incredibly quickly. So they're now sort of a darling of Wall Street for AI. I mean, sure, the biggest darling is obviously still NVIDIA and second TSMC, but and third Microsoft. But they're in there, right? And Palantir has grown 160% in 3 months, 6 months, something like that. But what if you discovered that all that Palantir are doing was calling GPT-4, right?
Yeah.
Would you still describe them as an AI company? And like, arguably, like, I mean, we know that they do a lot more, right? And they have a lot of other data and data aggregation and other algorithms, etc., right? So we know that that's not true. But what if, like, hypothetically, what if you discovered that that was the case and you thought you were buying an AI company that, could have been comparable to, Snowflake or any of those, or Databricks or something like that, right? Or Hugging Face. And I think that's what the SEC is interested in, right? So it's more the deliberate window dressing, I guess. Whereas, like, and a little bit of window dressing is okay, right? So if you use support vector machines and decision trees and anything that is basically machine learning from the 90s, and you call it AI, I think it's still okay from a legal perspective. From a moral perspective, I would say, like, update your models, but you can still get away with it, right?
Yeah, so if I chime in there, for me, if I put a consultancy hat on, it's similar in the way where if you're consultant washing, if you will, right? Where you call yourself a consultant, but all you are is a body shop, just having people that turn the handle. Because consultants should be going in and imparting wisdom and experience and improving the client's organization, right? And so you're calling yourself a consultant, but yet you're just a handle turner. So for me, that's a similar parallel to saying, actually, is this AI or is it not AI? And then the other, if I can add to this, I don't know if you agree with this or not, feel free to disagree, because apparently the listeners want us to disagree. But for me, I think I draw the line when it's automation versus AI. And the difference for me is automation is taking something here. There's a set process and path that it follows and comes out on this end based on rules. And then my simple brain, and this is why the listeners love my view, because I'm simple, I think. You're the brains. And AI is taking data and information and turning it into something that you don't recognize, but it's using built-in intelligence, the algorithms, the coding, to interpret what's coming in, to give you an output that you perhaps wouldn't have thought of. I'm trying to
I
dumb it
guess so,
down. Maybe
yeah.
I'm
And I
making it
think
more complex.
that's no. I think that that you're going to like the far right end of AI. I think, and I think it's right to think in that direction because that's more and more of what we're going to see on the automation front. I think it's very hard to build automation today that's not going to use AI somehow, right?
Yeah.
Because we've got I think the low hanging fruit of automation have been done already for years, right? So even things like RPA, robotic process automation, is 90% AI, and there's a lot of very exciting things happening there too. But automation is now dependent on good use of AI, or at least modern automation requires a certain amount of AI. I think so. You're right in that if we look at AI on the extreme end of the scale, you're going to see basically things that take a lot of data, learn about the data, and then give you something that you weren't expecting. So and we get this a lot, like, tell me something that I didn't know, right? Which makes sense. But also I have to tell you all the things that you already know, I guess. And that's where the automation difference is, right? Like if you're automating something, you're just basically making sure that you're doing the things that people already know, but you just then do them 100 times a minute. Which is also very cool, right? And very valuable, right? There's a lot of then further enablement that comes from automation. This is why I think it's also incredibly scary for a lot of people, right? Because people are starting to worry that their entire job is going to get automated. And we've had that discussion before, right? But
We have, but that are we finished with that news article? Because I think jobs is actually a great segue onto another piece in the news about Mustafa Suleyman changing jobs, if you will. But I just want to check: are we going to park the SEC one?
Sure. I think for me, it's just exciting to see regulators starting to step in, right? In not just in that, there's like lots of other places where they're starting to step in and starting to figure out that actually, we can't just let it be the Far West. I think crypto has been an example of where regulators kind of didn't step in soon enough, and it became a bit the Far West in 2018, 2019, and 2020, and a lot of people lost a lot of money, right?
Well, it's funny you bring up crypto. Have you seen in the news overnight about this huge cryptocurrency Bitcoin bust of this foreign national coming in as a takeaway worker and then buying £1 billion mansions and things like that, and turned out to be the Chinese national sort of conned people in China to giving them Bitcoin, and then they were basically just laundering the Bitcoin by buying properties in the UK. So crypto is quite an interesting one. There's another news article, which we won't go down, I don't think, because I want to talk about Mustafa Suleyman. For those that don't know, who is Mustafa?
So Mustafa was co-founder of DeepMind with Mr. Sabis. More recently, he was co-founder of Inflection AI. So a little bit of context. Inflection AI appeared a year ago, something like that, maybe a year and a half. And no, about a year ago, actually. And it was founded by Reid Hoffman, co-founder of LinkedIn, and Mustafa Suleyman. And what they did was, I think it was pretty incredible. It was like the first one of this group of companies that raised $1 quadrillion at a gazillion valuation with nothing to prove yet, and zero revenue for sure, and zero traction and no product, right? But they ended up raising, I think, in total $1.5 billion in about 3 months, right? And they took money from all your usual suspects, including NVIDIA and Microsoft. And basically what they did is they had this partnership with CoreWeave, which is a cloud provider, but they basically just started buying up GPUs because they said, we're going to build a model, and our model is going to be empathetic and basically become a personal assistant rather than, you could probably fit ChatGPT in the work business process assistant kind of world. It's where you also would put Copilot, I guess. And they wanted to have something like, this is your personal thing, right? It's called Pi. I'm sure that a lot of people have tried it. And yeah, overnight, basically like lightning strike, Mustafa Suleyman is now CEO of Microsoft AI, which didn't exist 3 days ago, I think. Basically, the same position that Sam Altman was offered when he was temporarily fired from OpenAI, I guess. But with him, I think he's taken like half of the Inflection team.
Yep.
And I don't know what's going to happen to Inflection, right? But you have this company now who basically has had an arm and a leg amputated overnight and has still an enormous amount of funding, right? Like, it's not they took the money away. And it's just very interesting to just basically, I'm just bringing out the popcorn here at this point, right? But I'm sure that
What do we think that means? Because in practicality, and if we're talking to our audience who, I guess, predominantly use Microsoft products, and you brought up Copilot there as well, does that mean it's
Yeah.
going to fundamentally change the environment that most project professionals work in, because it's all based on predominantly the Microsoft environment? Are we going to now all of a sudden start interacting with Windows in a very different way? I don't know. How do you see it impacting everyday life on projects?
That's going to happen anyway, right? That was going to
Yep.
happen with or without Mustafa, right? But I think Microsoft, specifically Satya Nadella, I think, has felt the pain of Microsoft not having its own DeepMind. So I think that's why they partnered with OpenAI in the first place. And Microsoft Research has existed for a long time, right? And they have some incredible contributions, not just in machine learning, but in all sorts of things. But it was never at the same level. And actually, Microsoft AI also owns Copilot, right? So that's going to be interesting to see. What I don't know, but I think they will definitely need a very strong product lead to pair with Mustafa. I think Mustafa's an excellent technical leader, but they'll need someone who understands, I guess, the users, right, in a sense, like a very strong product leader that looks at the market of what does this cohort of 2 billion users look like, and what do people want, and how do they want to interact with things, versus, what models can you build, which is also incredibly important, right? Those two things cannot succeed if you cannot succeed if you don't have both. And it'll be interesting to see how that group gets built out. But I felt that pain, right? You cannot just build models for the sake of building models. You have to understand everything else that happens after the model. And this is where Copilot, I guess, has done a better job than others. And that's why I guess like they already had deep penetration with Office and Teams, and you integrate all of that, and all of a sudden you show up with Copilot as an add-on. It's an easy checkbox to tick. But it would be interesting to see if then Copilot can become a good product and an actually very useful AI, right? And this is where I get stuck, right? If you look at custom GPTs, it's interesting, but they're actually not that good.
Yeah, I agree with that. There was a bit of hype, right, around in the beginning. Oh, everyone can create a custom GPT on chat. You just have to go in and you can create it. And then, I even went in and I was part of the hype in the beginning and tried to do my own. And I was like,
yeah, well, I think we've all played with it, right? Like, you'd be silly not to play
it's
with
nice
it.
to play around. But if we then take that, what that means, so I'm trying to put now the Greg Lawton hat on, right, on the economy and the world and what that means. And I think it's good generally. The more competition we see, the better it is in general terms. It improves the product in general that is available to the masses.
Yeah.
The hope is, for me, is that even though a large part of the organization has left, that void would be filled, and that would just drive the competitiveness further. So now you all of a sudden, there are more big players, hopefully, because I think that is good. I think, yes, we bring back all the previous discussions we've had around control and security and all those types of things. But if we can do it in a way that improves human lives, then why not push the boundaries and compete in that manner?
Yeah. Right.
So,
And actually, if you think about improving human lives, I'm going to say, given that we're going down the economics track again, something that Warren Buffett said recently as well, which is pretty much everyone alive today has a better life than John Rockefeller, whatever his name was, 100 years ago, right? And this is just general, call them quality of life improvements, but general improvements, medical care is the biggest example in a lot of things, right? Medical care, communication, travel, etc., right? Like imagine you have to get on a horse to go anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. I guess talking about economics in the world as well, we've got another news article that we could potentially talk about as well. Is this it's sort of broken overnight on when we're recording this. Saudi looking to potentially invest 40 billion in AI, Saudi Arabia, and if they do that, they would be second to Japan. I know we were speaking briefly, off air, and you weren't sure how to feel about it. I mean, one of the
my take on this is, we have to have a couple of hot takes. But I'm like, where's the surprise? Where's the news?
Yeah,
because Saudi, I think it was the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund. I'm not entirely sure. I'm going off memory here. I don't have anything to reference or quote. But they were looking to invest in OpenAI, or maybe have invested in OpenAI a long time ago, right? So that strategy has been clear for a long time. I think they just made a press release about something that pretty much everybody already knew. Already suspected was going on, right? So, I guess the fun bit is that we now know there's some details, right? In short, it's interesting. And what's going to happen is that then you'll have a million AI-washed companies calling up the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund, saying, "Hey, I've got an AI company. Do you want to invest 100 mil?" So yeah, I wouldn't want to be the one looking at maintaining that inbox.
Well, the other question it does raise, I think, Al, is AI requires a lot of power, right? Particularly if we want to advance at scale. And we don't often talk about the sustainability side of AI. And perhaps here's a thought, there is a lot of sun and there are a lot of natural resources in Saudi Arabia and the Middle East in general. Although whether it's sustainable power or not is up for debate. Perhaps it's not a bad option to base a lot of AI and startups and tech companies there because it has those resources. I know there's a big drive to have those sources sustainable for the environment at large, but they're not there yet. I don't believe they're building that. They're building the infrastructure. So maybe it's not a bad thing. But do we want to talk a bit about the power?
I'm not at all pointing it as a bad thing, right? And I actually don't even think you need to base the companies there. You just need to put the data centers somewhere, somewhere that is useful and has access to energy. And I think energy specifically, and I don't know, I've seen this making the rounds on LinkedIn, and I really don't see how people are not making the connection here. But there's a very simple connection for sustainable energy for data centers, right? Especially if you talk about AI, right? So for AI, most of the energy gets spent on training. And training you can do anywhere because you don't have latency or lag problems, which means that, you could put, and Microsoft actually experimented with this a while ago, you could sink a data center to the bottom of the sea. Free cooling. I mean, if you do it too much, no, you'd never get to the point where you're heating up sea levels, but sea temperature levels. But that could be one thing, right? And, and we're talking about cooling, but most of the energy in data centers is GPUs and cooling. I'd say 50-50, give or take. So you get rid of half of it. And then the other part is there's really only two strategies here for data center power. One is small modular reactors. So I think every new data center, first of all, needs to be covered in solar panels and have a solar and wind farm attached to it, but also have an SMR. And sure, you have all the different redundant power provisions, so you do still connect to the grid, etc., but only as a backup, right? And reactors don't typically power down, right? That's kind of one of the problems. That's why we've had negative energy prices for a while at night, right? Which is super interesting. It's because you really can't pause a nuclear reactor, right? So in terms of reliability, they're amazing for that, of availability of power. And the other one, you've got deserts, right? So like, we're talking about Saudi. We've got all of the deserts, and you only need to cover a very small amount of desert in solar panels to basically power the entire planet, right? And I think that could be the answer to the power problem, right? You just sure, you'd have to think about all different considerations about building data centers in the desert. But if we're happy building a 10-mile long straight line city in the middle of the desert, I'm sure we can start building data centers there, right?
Yeah.
Ensure that
I guess the other consideration,
free energy, cooling is not a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And shifting gears slightly, but staying with the same topic, I guess, the Middle East region, Saudi Arabia, has been notorious historically for ethics and morality and things like that. And perhaps that raises some questions for investors to go, do I want to invest in that? And perhaps, socially, it might change the landscape as well to attract investors. So perhaps it's a good thing. And, looking at the likes of the NEOM region and what they're trying to do there, where attracting foreign, not just foreign investors, but foreign visitors, people to come in, you're going to have to make the environment that they live in what they're used to. And if they're not used to living under traditional Saudi laws, then they won't come, right? And so perhaps this does something as well from that perspective.
Yeah, and if you think about data centers, I don't know how this applies to training AI models, but maybe they'll have to make some provisions, right? So right now, if you want to basically deliver SaaS software in Saudi, there's pretty much rules that you have to basically use KSA approved data centers in KSA, right? And I think one could speculate why is that the case, right? And I won't in a public forum speculate about why I think that might be the case, but I don't think it could ever be a good reason.
Yeah,
in a sense.
But if
right?
they want to, if any listener wants to know your opinion, your number is 07.
Yeah, exactly. Well, have you seen Val at GenAIpodcast.com? Yeah, so like there would have to be provisions to make sure that if OpenAI is going to start actually training models in the desert, powered by a large solar farm and nuclear reactors, small modular reactors or whatever, there would have to be certain provisions around what laws apply to that model and what laws apply to that data center, right? And I think
Yeah.
the legislation will have to change. I don't think it is perfectly suitable. But you don't just have KSA in the desert. You have lots of other countries, right? So
Yeah.
it could just be that everything happens in the Sahara, right? Like do everything in Morocco. Morocco has a
Yeah,
great
there's
opportunity
deserts in
here.
Australia as well,
There's Western Australia. Although I worry that there's too many wallaroos in Western Australia that'll just go and kick down the doors and eat the servers. But but yeah, there's Western Australia. There's a lot of places with. I mean, and it's strange that we're now talking about a desert as a natural resource. But places where sun's available 24/7, you can put. I mean, this is definitely true about Western Australia, right? You can put a small modular reactor in the middle of Western Australia, and basically nobody would even care because there's nobody in a 500-mile radius, right? And ironically, WA is where the biggest deposits of uranium are. So there's this one piece of land that is incredibly radioactive, and I think there was some documentary about it recently that I watched. But then you have like very short supply chain for it as well.
Yeah. So there's a lot of factors to consider when it comes to what's viable and where when it comes to AI and on the global scale. I think it's evolving as well. But if we bring it closer to home, I guess for myself and you, because Greg's not based here and neither is Val, the UK
well, let's
government
choose for them because they didn't show up, so we get to choose for them as well.
Okay, cool. But the UK government has recently published rather than posted. I'm thinking of LinkedIn again. Maybe that's the new vernacular. And we posted it on our Gen AI podcast LinkedIn page. There's a link to it around data analytics and AI in government project delivery. And it's looking at how we utilize AI and project data analytics in all government projects and working with the IPA, etc. And that's quite interesting for us, particularly, I think, working in this project construction industry and what that actually means. And I think it's a good step because recognizing that it's not just a fad, it's here to stay, and there's some benefits to be had out of it. Have you had a chance to look at it, Al?
I have. I want to flip the question. What do you think about it? I'm sorry, someone has started drilling in the background.
I think the noise cancellation is quite good. So, but
yeah.
So I haven't had a chance to read it through thoroughly. I skim read it, and I think in general, it's a step in the right direction because, like I say, it recognizes the fact that it is required. Because we're at a stage where, as we said at the top of the pod, where things are still evolving. I don't quite think we know the full extent of how we want to use it in project delivery yet. In many cases, we're exploring, and again, this is not a sales podcast, but the likes of what you're doing at Nplan, Greg's doing at Nodes and Links, and others in the industry that are, pushing the boundaries of what we can do in project delivery using artificial intelligence, I think is only the start of the journey. And I definitely think that there is much more to be had when delivering projects using AI. And so I think it's a good start. I don't think it's the end. That's my initial view. It might sound like a politician's answer, but that is just because I haven't had the time to sit down and properly think through it. So yeah, that's, I guess, my opinion, rightly or wrongly.
Okay, yeah, and I think I see what you're saying. For me, it feels like it's a nice promise. It's a nice, I guess maybe I will call them a statement of sentiment. rather than a commitment,
Yeah.
right? And so it feels like it's lacking bite, and it's lacking. Perhaps this is a statement about, what is the actual power of the IPA, and we could have like a very long conversation about that, I guess. Because I don't think the IPA can make anybody do things, right? And so it does question the significance of the third letter of APA, which is authority. So it feels like a statement of sentiment, a tip of the hat towards these are all the reasonably correct things to do, right? And all these statements are phrased, all these principles are phrased like we will, but it sort of feels like I will not drink beer on a Friday night. Will you? Won't you? I don't know, right? And there doesn't seem to be concrete plans attached to it, and I guess that there's a lot of other organizations that need to make those plans.
Yes.
For it to actually happen, and that is what I want to see before actually coming to a conclusion either way. And it feels like right now a bit PR-y and not a lot of concrete action. And so we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, no, I take your point. I think what's the follow-on from this, and for those that haven't seen it or heard it, just to read it out quickly, there's a little gray box if you click on the link, and it says innovation in data analytics and AI could be transformative for project delivery. The volume of project data created through and about public investment is our great strength and presents enormous potential. Here's the we's, or the we wills. We will work together to harness this potential to deliver better project outcomes. We will give project delivery professionals the skills to make best use of data. We will remove barriers to sharing data, which is interesting. We will experiment together and put data at the heart of our delivery. We will think big, start small, and scale fast across our diverse projects. That last we will is very, very advertising, marketing, PR-y. I agree with you there. And then the last statement as well. Together, we aim to put the UK at the front of this emerging discipline. So they recognize it's emerging. They recognize there's skills and training to be had to make use of the data. They recognize there's barriers, which is great. And they've put forward what they are wanting to do. So we've known this for a little while now, and maybe we are in a bit of an echo chamber, but yeah, I take your viewpoint as well. So I love the fact that you're a little bit more suspicious, glass half empty, if I may, and I've got the positive because we need a bit of perspective and discourse. So let's continue in those characters and be devil's advocate here, Al.
Yeah, I'll carry on wearing the skeptical hat, and I think first of all, let me just say I'll wear the skeptical hat, but I also have to say this is good, right? This is good.
Yes.
And it's good in many different ways. I mean, obviously, my favorite sentence in all of this document is AI can be used to forecast project outcomes. But forget that for a second. Really, like the reason why I'm skeptical is because now the real barriers are going to be internal, right? So what I'm thinking about is that all of these organizations that somehow are connected to the IPA all have their own chief data officer, and they all have their own IT procurement and everything else, processes and groups and departments. So it's not going to be a surprise, right? This is a world that is plagued by politics all over the place, right? And I guess like the reason why I'm skeptical is that the IPA has no control over that. And neither does the NAO or the CDDO, right? So we really need to then find alignment from all the other organizations. And I don't know how we're going to do it. That's why I'm skeptical that it will actually have a big impact, right? And personal opinion, definitely not opinion of Mplan or anything else, and it's better than not having done it. It's way better than not having done it, because you need to create alignment from somewhere. And if you can actually find a way to make everybody aligned to this, then it's going to be amazing. I just don't know how, and I guess I don't understand enough about politics and government systems, right? Because it's really not something that I know much about, or have an interest in learning too much about, I guess. But it is something that
some politicians that don't know how politics works either, but we won't go there.
Sure, right? Like, yeah, no comment. Yeah, I would just, I would love to see it come to fruition. You kind of need, I think, an actual big thumb coming out of the sky and making all these different components fall into place for it to work. I just don't know where the big thumb is, and sure, the prime minister could do it, but got better things to do than calling up all the various CDOs and whoever else, right?
Yeah. It is an interesting one, and I think it's I love the fact that I think we've taken a step back and just looked at what's in the news, because there's a lot happening, and I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing that there's a lot happening in the news. I think it'll continue for some time as well. And I think it'll only benefit the way projects are delivered. The more we talk about these things, and, sort of heading towards the end of this pod, just rounding up, is that if anyone else has views and opinions and has topics we want to discuss, news articles you'd like us to share opinion on, share that with us as well. Myself and Al will definitely be here. We'll get Greg back, and we won't promise anything for Val, but we'll continue to give him some stick. But I guess rounding up, Al, with everything happening, in the news and all of that, what are, I guess, just to sum it up, some of the key trends from your perspective, the noise, I guess, getting through the noise on projects, and what's sort of being adopted at this stage in terms of delivery?
So adoption is very interesting, right? Because this is something that I've heard a lot of AI founders and companies talk about. So there's an enormous amount of talk about AI. There's an enormous amount of excitement about AI, but adoption is very lagging. So the only real fast adoption is at the personal level, right? So, and pretty much everyone I know is using, I guess minus my parents, but is using ChatGPT or Claude in some way, and or Copilot, right? And that's incredibly exciting, but it's mostly at the personal level. So like even the people that use Copilot, they'll use it for like some tiny things that are for their job, right? So to actually drive adoption into business-wide things, business-wide problems, that's the bit that is definitely slower than we would have hoped for. I don't know what the answer is for accelerating it, making it better. I mean, a lot of it is going to be a combination of belief about how AI is going to work, and education, and sharing of information, and all these things. And the other part will be, I'm going to call it product management, right? It's going to be find what are the things in a vertical domain or in business operations that actually move the needle, and how do you create everything in front of the AI to deliver value. I know it's like it's a bit of a cliche, but deliver value in the sense of like, get people to do things that actually help. And for the most part, a chatbot is not the answer to that question, especially if you want to go into workflows, right? So if you look at everybody's job, they'll have a set of, you could describe it as a set of workflows. Where does AI fit in? Asking someone to go to a chatbot, ask a question, copy paste, and add steps to their workflow rather than make it better is not going to work. Right? So the chatbot is proof that the AI and the models do a good job and the agents do a good job, but you need the hook in to drive adoption. Sorry, I went a little bit sideways, but I think right now, this is especially true in markets, I guess. But right now, there's a lot of investment around AI platforms and AI model companies, that kind of thing. And I'd love to start seeing more excitement for whoever's building the hooks into, right? And so if you think about who is doing that, it's the company. I mean, there's a lot of companies in that group who are not AI companies, but are users of the AI platform, right? So like companies that spend a lot of money on the OpenAI API, but then build interfaces on top. And I have a couple of favorites, right? So the public markets one is Palantir, right? They have a lot of their own AI. They have a partnership with OpenAI. There's a lot of different connections there. But they're understanding deeply what is it that we need to hook into and make better so that anyone that is on their platform actually has some impact on their job.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's an amazing way to end this pod, because the adoption rate one is an interesting one, right? And I agree with you, although the listeners probably don't like me saying that, where the adoption rate on a personal level, I think, is great. But as you say, is it appropriate to how we deliver projects? Maybe not. But I think it's a start. So the glass half empty, Dale, again, will say, fantastic. Great that you're using it on a personal level. Now the challenge for you, listener, is go and think about how you can bring that into delivering your projects better, faster, quicker, with, cost savings, more sustainable, better outcomes for the people and the public you're delivering them for. All these things that give us the reasons to deliver these projects. So how can you use what you're learning with the use of your personal use of AI? How can you bring that into the workplace and the projects you're delivering? So that's the challenge to you. The other invite, rather than challenge, is what do you think? What do you think adoption rates are like? What do you think should be done differently in order to have an uptake in adoption levels in project delivery? So we'll leave that one there with you. Thank you for spending another 45, 50 odd minutes with us. It's great to have you with us listening in, and we'll catch up with you on the next one. We'll see who's around for that one, and we won't make any promises. But yeah, Al, any final words?
Yeah, I have to add a legal disclaimer because I don't want the SEC coming after me. I hold a position in Palantir, but that it's a very small position. And because I talked about Palantir in a positive way, I have no insider information at all.
Cool. Disclaimers there. It's all our own opinion. Exactly.
I think I'll leave it at that because that good comedy.
Absolutely. So folks, thanks once again. We'll catch you on the next episode. Take care and bye for now.
Bye.